In the dark of the night, whispers of deceit,
Shadows dance on the walls,
secrets they repeat, a shadowed figure
with eyes full of lies,
hiding truths in the shadows where no one dares to pry. Uncover the truth, let the lies come undone. Peel back the layers until the light is shown. Uncover the truth, let the shadows run. Break free from the chains and find the sun. Uncover the truth in the dead of the night, where secrets lie hidden like a whispered bite. Uncover the truth in the dim of the light, where betrayals take.
All right.
You know, this is the song that got the post removed from Facebook. The video, the music. They're saying it was NBC Universal who complained and said
About that?
Yes, that's why
I made that song.
That's what I said.
You got to challenge that. I made it.
No, I did, but it was on Facebook. But that they said that I could use the video, but they had to cut out the music.
No,
because NBC Universal challenged it, and I'm like, Schumann created it.
I created that song. Let me see if I can find it.
I don't think anyone else is creating lyrics with Steve Cully and Dave Schumann in the dead of the night with secrets like whispers.
No way. No way. Let me see.
No,
where is
no,
it?
It's fine. It's
in
fine.
the dead of the night.
It's okay. Yeah. I just thought it was funny.
I even made. Wait till. Oh yeah, here it is. Wait. That's it right there. That's my song, dude. That's mine. That's right. We trying to take my shit, NBC.
Well, this is another Bloodlines and Betrayal. And today we are talking about a phenomenal event. And Coach Schumann is saying yes to greatness, and he doesn't have camp this week, and he's losing his tan, which is also good. The very controversial event, well known in our history, the siege on Waco. The siege on Waco, which was back in, it was a 51-day standoff, and it was in 1993. 1993. It was about the Branch Davidians, I believe how you say it, and their charismatic leader, David Koresh, none other. David Koresh, who had taken over. And it's interesting to read about it because there were two issues that caused the siege, and it all probably could have been prevented except for one flaw that happened on the way. So they were in the federal government and the Texas Rangers, other law enforcement, they were investigating them for a while, but it was the ATF basically had learned that they were stockpiling weapons, not only weapons, but illegal weapons. And they got a search warrant for the compound, and they got arrest warrants for Koresh and several of the group members. And the other issue, obviously, David Koresh was, I don't know how to say this, fornicating with minors, maybe. Also,
Yeah.
also he was is it polyamorous or polymorphous?
Yeah.
Polyamorous. Yeah. So I mean, him and Jim Jones both did that. That's got to be the good thing about being a cult leader.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess
if
that's
you,
the requirement of being a cult leader. We get to be
yeah, I guess that's great about being a cult leader. You can just take whoever you want. Say, I'm having sex with her tonight. So that happened. So I didn't know this. The ATF planned a sudden daylight raid on the ranch to serve the warrants because they obviously wanted the surprise. You know, they wanted to have a surprise, but it was blown, which is crazy. I hearing about this. A local reporter was tipped off about the raid and he was going to cover it and he didn't know how to get to the Branch Davidian site. So he stopped at a U.S. Postal Service. He stopped the U.S. Postal Service mail carrier and asked him for directions on how to get to the facility. And the mail carrier was coincidentally David Koresh's brother-in-law. How about that? So his brother-in-law obviously notified him, and the group's members were fully armed and prepared for the raid. So the ATF basically ended up being the ones getting ambushed. They initiated the raid. There was a ton of gunfire. 4 ATF agents lost their lives. 6 Branch Davidians were killed. And following the ATF entering the property and, you know, its failure to execute the search warrant, a siege was initiated by the FBI. And as we all know, the FBI tries to negotiate first. They don't want any further loss of life. So they started negotiations. And it was I can't believe it was a 51-day standoff. It was a 51-day standoff. I can't believe that the FBI would negotiate for that long. That's what's kind of surprising for me because I mean, I've seen other documentaries and police shows where negotiators, you know, especially hostage negotiators during hostage situations, there's a time limit where if it's not going anywhere, they breach, right?
Right.
And my question.
They waited for a long time. Well, they didn't want to breach. There were so many children in there.
That's what I was going to say to you. Is that why? Because there were so many people and children. Okay.
I watched the show on it, like a couple of the things on it.
I did too.
And I remember. So the ATF made a lot of mistakes.
Yes, they did.
And
they had a poor plan going in from where they were going to enter as well, which I think caused it.
And they had a guy on the inside.
Yes, they had a guy on the inside
who was kind of trying to tell them.
But I it sounded like the guy on the inside was playing both sides.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, because
that's usually what they do, but
well, but it seemed like he was also giving the like he once he was found out that he was ATF. I think he was eventually allowed to leave, but I believe he was giving the Branch Davidians information as well.
Yes.
So he was kind of playing both sides. So I didn't understand how they would wait 51 days to do this. That's what blows my mind. Like, I can't picture the negotiations, and I know that they negotiated with Koresh directly, and he was making some outrageous demands, and that was part of the big deal. So I didn't also know this, the prelude to it. February 27th, 1993, the Waco Tribune Herald began publishing The Sinful Messiah. It was a series of articles by Mark England and Darlene McCormick, who reported the allegations that Koresh was physically abusing children at the compound, committed statutory rape by taking many underage brides, and he was an advocate of, obviously, polygamy for himself, and declared that he was married to several female residents on the community. He was entitled, the paper, these articles claim that Koresh had at least 140 wives. And my question to you, Dave, is, because you are married, it's got to be hard enough to have one wife. How do you manage 140 of them?
Yeah.
That's all I could think about. It was like, most people can't manage one wife. How's this guy doing, like, handling 140 of them?
Yeah, 140. What it was what it was?
Yeah, that's what it says here. Yeah, the in one of the articles, it said that he had 140 wives. He was entitled to claim any of the women in the group, and that he fathered at least a dozen children, and some of the mothers became brides as young as 12 or 13 years old. So in addition to the sexual abuse and misconduct, Koresh and his followers, they had been suspected of stockpiling weapons since May of 1992. The ATF were contacted and notified by, actually, it was a UPS representative, because UPS had been delivering so many packages to the compound. One of the packages broke open accidentally, and it revealed half a dozen grenades. Grenades, Dave. And he also the postal carrier also noted that the compound had been receiving packages from an arms dealer for months. So you can call UPS. I can put grenades in a UPS box and just send them.
No, I don't think you can.
I mean, I don't think you can either, but I mean, wouldn't you think they would notice? You don't think they'd notice that the package was fucking grenades? That's what I can't believe. So in June 9th of 1992, the ATF opened the formal investigation, and that's why all of this happened. They investigated up until February, and that's when they were going to use the warrants. So the ATF used an affidavit by Special Agent David Aguilera to obtain the search and arrest warrant that led to the Waco siege. And it was, like I said, the postal worker who informed them about the grenades, and the sheriff's office was notified in May of June of that year that, like, hey, you got a big problem. There were grenades, black gunpowder, 90 pounds of powdered aluminum, and 30 to 40 cardboard tubs. They had AR-15s and M16 kits. And the sellers were also under investigation. But all of this stuff, like, I just can't believe that day after day, UPS is just delivering packages to the Branch Davidians and not knowing. That's what's crazy. So
That's crazy.
Yes. So the search warrant, they were going to go on or before February 28th, 1993, in the daytime between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. And now the other thing they claimed, which I never heard this on any of the documentaries, was that Koresh was manufacturing methamphetamine. He had a meth lab, and that was allowing them to make money, which they were in turn buying the military assets. So that's crazy to me. Like, do you remember hearing anything about that he had a meth lab there?
He had a meth lab there? I didn't know that. No.
I don't. It doesn't say. I'll read further down. It doesn't say that he did. It said that the ATF made a claim that he was operating a meth lab, and that's how they were getting their money. And then the ATF in turn requested assistance from the DEA. But I mean, it would obviously make sense if they were saying that they were monitoring the deliveries. They were getting deliveries of chemicals, instruments, and glassware, which would be obviously used to cook meth. I mean, and it's dangerous to do. And the National Guard was overflighting, and they had thermal images showing hot spots inside the compound, indicating a meth lab. I just had never heard that before. I'd seen a million documentaries. They never mentioned a meth lab. So the code name for the raid was Showtime. And the media had found out, but they got them to hold off on it, except for that one reporter who was on his way for that. But they were pissed because those reporters wrote the articles calling Koresh the sinful Messiah. They wrote a series on it. They were trying to get Koresh outside of the compound and outside Mount Carmel, but the people received inaccurate information because he never left.
Right.
The Branch Davidians were known locally and had cordial relations with the locals. They went to gun shows, and they always had relevant paperwork. Like they didn't have illegal weapons, apparently, from what this says. They just purchased a lot of them, a lot. So they executed the search warrant. It got blown up, obviously, because the mail carrier that the reporter asked for directions was the brother-in-law. And the agent, was just, I don't know. But the Branch Davidians were hidden and praying, and Koresh ordered the males to arming themselves and taking defensive positions, while the women and children hid in their rooms. Now, this is also disputed. Who shot first? ATF agents claimed that they heard shots coming from the compound. Branch Davidian survivors claimed that the first shots came from the ATF agents. That was a huge point of contention. A suggested reason may have been an accidental discharge of a weapon, possibly by an ATF agent, that caused the ATF to respond to fire with automatic weapons. And then other reports claim the first shots fired by the ATF dog team sent to kill the dogs in the Branch Davidians kennel. That's amazing. 3 helicopters of the Army National Guard were used as aerial distraction. All took oncoming fire. And Koresh actually got shot. He was wounded. He was shot in the hand and in the stomach. And within a minute of the raid's start, the Branch Davidians called emergency services. He called 911 and pleaded for them to stop shooting. And he asked for a ceasefire. And you can hear him on the audio tapes basically saying, here they come again. They're shooting. They're shooting. It's not us. It's not us. This was the sad part. The first ATF casualty was an agent who made it to the west side of the building before he was wounded. Agents took cover, fired at the buildings while the helicopters began their diversion. None of the helicopters got shot and they ended up going down, but none of the crew members were injured. The helicopters pulled away from the compound and landed on the east side. Then the agents put 2 of the ladders against the east side of the building, and this is, I think, what we always see on TV, where they climb the roof and they try to secure it. And if you remember, they were trying to climb through the window.
Yes,
and it's the new scene where you see the agents taking fire.
Yep.
That's where they believe the weapons were stored. An agent was killed and another was wounded. And a third agent got over the peak of the roof and they attempted to enter the armory. The window was smashed. Flashbang stun grenades were thrown in. The agents breached, entered the armory, and then, bullets started to penetrate the wall, and an agent got wounded. He was able to reach the ladder and get down. Another agent fired a shotgun at the Branch Davidians until he was hit in the head and killed instantly inside the armory. The agents killed a Branch Davidian and discovered a cache of weapons, but there was just so much fire. 2 were wounded, and they escaped. They called, get out. They also killed another Branch Davidian as they were laying down cover, just trying to make their escape. Dozens of ATF agents took cover, many behind Branch Davidian vehicles, and exchanged fire with them. And as the number of ATF wounded increased, an agent was killed by gunfire from the compound as agents were firing at Branch Davidians who were perched on top of a goddamn water fire. The exchange continued 45 minutes. 45 minutes into the raid, the gunfire stopped. The shooting went on for, Dave, 2 freaking hours. That's amazing to me. On American soil, a 2-hour shootout with these people. Yeah.
Crazy.
So now this is the other thing I didn't know. The ATF agents withdrew and ceased fire. The only reason why was because they were out of ammunition. 45 minutes into the shootout, the volume of gunfire was so much they were running out of ammunition. And the Branch Davidians had more than them, had plenty. So they had to stop. They called the ceasefire because of the people who've gotten killed, the number of injuries. They had 16 injured. And after the ceasefire, the Branch Davidians allowed the ATF dead and wounded to be evacuated and held their fire during the ATF retreat. The 5 Branch Davidians killed were buried nearly 6 hours. So another reporter states the Branch Davidians never ambushed the ATF. he said they apparently did not maximize the kill of ATF agents, explaining that there were desperate religious fanatics expecting an apocalyptic ending in which they were destined to die defending their sacred grounds.
Well, that was what David Koresh convinced them of.
Well, David Koresh, convinced them that he was the Messiah, and he was sent down from God, and the negotiations had started. The Davidians, initially they called the news media, and the news media actually gave Koresh 2 phone interviews. He got 2 phone interviews on the local news. And then the FBI cut their communications to the outside world. And for the next 51 days, the only communications that were had were by telephone with the FBI negotiators. And the Justice Department report found that negotiators criticized the tactical commanders for undercutting negotiations. And I think that's got to happen, Dave, because when you have so many different law enforcement agencies, there's got to be some miscommunication going on. Who's in charge? Someone wants to do it this way, another person wants to do it that way. Wouldn't you think?
Well, I think you're talking about the ATF.
Yeah, because the Texas Rangers are involved now. The FBI's got negotiators.
I don't think they communicated. I only know from watching the show, but I don't think they communicated with each other very well.
Mm-mm.
He wanted to be in charge. Some had a better viewpoint than the other. The ATF had a very bad viewpoint.
Yeah, the ATF was all about let's go. They just wanted to get in there and breach. Well, I can understand.
My whole thing was if you were going to arrest him, if you were going to arrest him specifically because you thought being polygamous or fooling around with underage girls,
that was part of it, and the illegal weapons, yes.
Yeah, but they could have he came out to visit with them many times. They could have just arrested him.
He did. Yes, he did. You're right.
Just arrested him if that was the case. If
you're absolutely right.
If you thought people were in imminent danger, okay, why are you letting him walk back?
You're right. He did come back.
Out. You can't say that he's in imminent danger. Everyone's in imminent danger, and then let him go back.
Letting him come and go. Yeah.
So to what? To set him up for what? If you took him out right there and arrested him, all those people would have just came out, and that would have been it. Yeah. So I don't really buy the whole thing. I think a lot of it. Do I think that David Koresh may have been doing some of that stuff? Absolutely. Was he polygamous? Absolutely.
Sure.
Was it worth all those people dying because of that? No. I mean, that was the whole point you were trying to prevent from the get-go. You know what I'm saying? So that was the thing that really bothered me, the whole thing, the handling of the David Koresh. I mean, obviously he was a fanatical person, but seemed like he was.
Well, yeah, you're right. He would come out and talk with them, go back in. That happened several times.
I don't understand it, to be honest.
I don't either.
It's one of those things that we're not obviously privy to all the information, which is obvious, but I feel like even if I was privy to all the information, I wouldn't I wouldn't agree with that approach strategy that they had. Yeah, I mean,
well, do you think that they were afraid if Koresh was taken or killed that his members would have, killed the kid or, did what ended up happening?
Maybe that's what they thought, but he had not demonstrated. They had not demonstrated any of that stuff. Really,
no, they didn't.
There wasn't anything. I mean, now maybe the shows I've watched were somewhat favorable to him. That could be. I'm saying those shows maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I think they're pretty accurate. I feel the same way you do.
Yeah, I feel like so.
They were. I mean, they didn't
I felt like
cause any damage.
Remember during that time period that happened. What was the year?
It was 93.
Yeah. So the 90s was when the beginning of this like backlash.
It was when the LA riots happened. Yeah.
I don't think that those are related, but I'm saying that like the backlash towards Christianity and
right, yes,
you know what I mean, because Jim Jones was in the 80s maybe or
70s,
yeah.
Ruby Ridge happened before this,
right? So it seemed like it was like a target, like almost like a targeting thing towards
the religion.
We didn't know. Well, let me put it like this. We now know, okay, that in America, there, in my opinion, this is my political viewpoint of this, there's a targeting attack on Christianity and Judaism for the most part throughout America. Okay?
Right now, yes. Yep.
Yes. All right. Different reasons for each group, but yeah, and trying to push to the forefront on the left side other religions or no religion, you know what I'm saying? So
correct.
And trying to blame like those religions for things. So the conspiracy theorist in me thinks that these things start to go into place a lot longer before they come to the forefront. And even though this was under George Bush, I believe. No,
this was Clinton.
Clinton. Oh, was it Clinton?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it says right here, Clinton.
Oh, okay, it was Clinton. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then that would kind of go towards my theory a little bit. I mean, Clinton is obviously more in the middle of the road, but they could, but within government, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that was Clinton's agenda.
Clinton was pissed about this.
Yeah, I was saying like he's more middle of the road. I don't think it was his agenda, but I think there may have been some agendas within the
ATF,
or the government to just go into. Now traditionally you would say the ATF would be a more conservative agency, right?
But I think when they had their members killed and wounded, I think that probably
changed
flipped the script. Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that it was really, to me, like I'm sure Koresh was doing a lot of things
illegal or immoral.
Some were definitely immoral.
A lot of the weapons were obtained legally. That's the thing. Like, he was stockpiling weapons, but the majority of them were legal.
Because he felt like he was going to be attacked. They were attacked.
Well, yeah, they were preparing for Armageddon. Yes.
Yeah, correct. So,
but that's what I didn't know. I thought the weapons were illegal, but according to this, the weapons that they were getting were legally purchased, and a lot of them were legally purchased at gun shows by the Branch Davidians when they went out. So it's not like
it's one of those tough things, like, because who was the other group that wanted to be more conservative that was in there? Was it the CIA or the FBI?
The FBI, you mean conservative as far as
not going in and going after
it was the FBI. The FBI. The FBI is the one who stopped everything. The FBI was the one who handled negotiations. They gave an agreement that they had 19 children released, and in exchange, they allowed a recorded message by Koresh to be broadcast on national radio.
Right.
That was, because they kept telling the ATF and the Rangers, like, listen, we're working through it. We're negotiating. We're making progress. And as you know, with negotiations, it's about wearing them down. You're wearing them down. You're wearing them down. And I know they were blasting music at night because they didn't want anyone to sleep. But
Right.
so,
Right,
yeah,
right,
it's a wear down tactic. So they released the 19 children up to 12 years old, and they interviewed them. And the children had been sexually and physically abused long before the standoff. And
that was my point of if they knew that was going on, shouldn't they have gone in? Like if the excuse was we had to go in, right?
Right.
Then, well, and you knew these things were going on. Like, what brought upon the panic on this day? You know what I'm saying? We had 50 some odd days of standoff, right? And you knew this was going on. You had this intel. You didn't go in. That was the part that I thought was so suspicious.
Well, they investigated it for over a year. And
what did they find?
They found that, number one, they thought he was operating a meth lab. And they thought he had obtained illegal firearms because the UPS driver said in the affidavit that one of the packages mistakenly opened and he saw grenades. So that was their excuse to get the search warrant.
They're obviously prepared.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But, they got the 19 kids out and they felt like they were making progress.
Right.
But what, this kept going on and going on. And it, eventually during the siege, the FBI sent a video camera to the Branch Davidians because they wanted Koresh to show what was going on. And he showed his children, his wives to the FBI negotiators, including 7 minors who claimed to have had babies fathered by Koresh.
That was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy.
He fathered 14 children, and he would not let them leave the compound. The other kids he let leave. He wouldn't let his own kids leave. And, the Branch Davidians made statements on the video that they want to be there, that there's no hostages here, because they treated it as a hostage situation. And everyone was saying, no, they want to be here. They did not, and this was the other thing that was screwy, they never released this video to the media because they felt the media would have sympathy for Koresh and the Branch Davidians, because it showed 23 children inside the compound, child care professionals taking care of the children. And, as the siege continued, Koresh he kept negotiating for more time, allegedly. So he wanted to write all these religious documents he needed to complete before surrendering. And his conversations were very dense with biblical imagery, and it alienated the federal negotiators who treated the situation, like I said, as a hostage crisis among themselves. And, they weren't listening to Koresh's words, calling it Bible babble. So this I also didn't know. The FBI consulted with Bible scholars, Philip Arnold and James Tabor, who studied the transcript of Koresh's radio broadcast, trying to understand his theology. And they were guests on talk radio programs. And, they basically said that he just wanted an audience. He was talking about Apostle Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament from prison. So he was content with going to prison
right?
Because he felt he would reach a larger audience, and he was willing to do that. If going to prison, if it meant reaching a larger audience. So they think that he probably would have surrendered. And the siege wore on. Now, this is the other thing that was a problem. Two factions developed within the FBI. One, obviously believing negotiation to believe the answer. The other, force. Increasingly aggressive techniques were used to try to force the Branch Davidians out. For instance, like I said, sleep deprivation. They were playing music, all-night recordings. There were jet planes, all that stuff. And they eventually got combat vehicles from the U.S. Army patrolling the grounds. They were destroying the perimeter fencing and cars that the Branch Davidians owned, and it was just crazy. And they drove over a grave of one of the Branch Davidians. And then, so now the other thing that happened, 2 of the 3 water storage tanks of the main building were damaged during the raid, and the FBI cut power and water to the compound. So people thought this was definitely wrong to do. It forced them to survive on rainwater and MRE, obviously military rations. Criticisms were by many people. Many people criticized the tactic of, using sleep and peace disrupting sound against the Branch Davidians. The point was this: they were trying to have sleep disturbances, and they were trying to take someone that they viewed as unstable to start with, and they were trying to drive him crazy. And then they get mad because he does something that they think is irrational. That's what several people said. So you already have a guy who's nuts. You think he's unstable, so let's deprive him of sleep, and let's try to drive him even crazier. And then they get mad that he does something, completely irrational. Despite these tactics, Koresh ordered a group of his followers to leave, and 11 people left and were arrested as material witnesses. And the children refused to leave because Koresh was their father, and that pissed off negotiators, who they were unprepared to work around the Branch Davidians' religious zeal. Just like you said, religion. And during the siege, several scholars studied the apocalypse in religious groups, attempting to persuade the FBI that the siege tactics being used would only reinforce the impression within the Branch Davidians that they were part of a biblical end of times confrontation that had a cosmic significance, and that would likely increase the chances of a violent and deadly outcome. So they knew this. I mean, they were having experts telling him this. I mean, right. Koresh proclaimed he was the second coming of Christ and had been commanded by the Father in heaven to remain in the compound. He would not come out. And then from April 5th,
him and Jesus were having combos, I guess.
Yeah, from April 5th until April 13th, Koresh refused to speak to the FBI, citing observance of the Passover holiday. So now the FBI is losing their fucking minds. Now they're considering putting snipers up to just start killing Koresh and the Branch Davidians.
Don't you find that crazy to me?
I do, because he's not actively, like, this is not a hostage situation. He's not hurting anyone. He's not doing anything.
Even though they're underaged, and people have talked about after that they didn't know any better, basically. And
the kid, his all the other kids were released. His kids refused to leave him, because he's their dad. So that was the main issue. And the FBI, again, like I said, there were the two camps. They're like, listen, we're negotiating. He's releasing people. He's being cooperative. Let's just keep talking. And they were just getting impatient because, again, this is 51 days you're talking about. So, they wanted to put snipers up there and just start shooting. And, the other camp of the FBI voiced concern that the branch...
It's one of the worst days. 9/11 obviously was worse, but it was one of the worst days as far as what the government did on American soil.
Yes. Jonestown had been the largest mass murder of Americans before 9/11, but this on American soil. Yes.
What was Jonestown? I don't.
Jonestown was Jim Jones.
Jim Jones. Yeah.
That was the largest mass murder of Americans before 9/11, but that wasn't on American soil. Jim Jones
did it in South America.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't on American soil, but it was the largest mass murder of Americans themselves.
Correct.
But this was the largest on American soil. Correct. And Koresh had his lawyer, the legendary Tik Tok, who's awesome. That was his last communication to the outside world.
I love how much you know about the. Even though you're not
Tik Tok represented Robert Durst.
Right.
That's why I know, and I'm a child of a lawyer. So he promised to exit the compound as soon. He was writing down an interpretation of the 7 seals of the Book of Revelation, and he was going to exit the compound as soon as it was completed. And this was his last communication. I want the people of this generations to be saved. I'm working night and day to complete my final work of writing out of these seals. I thank my Father. He's finally granted me a chance to do this. It will bring new light and hope to many. They will not have to deal with me, the person. I will demand the first manuscript of seals be given to you. Many scholars and religious leaders will wish to have copies for examination. I will keep a copy with me. As soon as I can see that people like Jim Tabor and Phil Arnold have a copy, those were the FBI, those were the biblical scholars the FBI consulted with. I will have a copy out to you, and you do your thing with it. The letter sparked immediate disagreement within the FBI. While some of it saw it as a breakthrough, others ridiculed it, suspecting it to be a delay tactic to buy Koresh more time for a violent confrontation. And again, I disagree with this because he had no interest in violence. The only violence that happened was when the ATF breached in the first search warrant. There was no violence after that. So that's why I disagree that they're saying he's gonna complete it and then he's gonna come out guns blazing. I don't agree with that. The FBI consulted a psychologist from Syracuse to understand his mental state. After examining this and 4 other letters, the report said that he exhibited all the hallmarks of rampant, morbidly vigilant paranoia. And I do not believe there is in these writings any better or at least certain hope for an early end to the siege.
Right.
So that was the end of the end. After they found out basically his state of mind and they didn't think that he was going to end the siege, Janet Reno, newly appointed U.S. Attorney General, approved recommendations by the FBI hostage rescue team to mount an assault after being told conditions were deteriorating and children were being abused inside the compound. Well, conditions were deteriorating because you cut off the power and their water.
Right. Right.
So Reno went right to Clinton. And she recalled allegedly April 19th, 1985, the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord siege in Arkansas. Wow, I never heard of that, which was ended without a loss of life. Clinton suggested similar tactics against the Branch Davidians. Janet Reno countered that the FBI hostage rescue team was tired of waiting, that the standoff was costing millions of dollars per week. That's probably true. Yeah, and sure. There was child sexual abuse and mass suicide that could happen. So Clinton finally said, I told her if she thought it's the right thing to do, go ahead. And Janet Reno took a lot of flack for this. She approved the final CS gas varied from her initial claim that the FBI hostage rescue team had told her Koresh was abusing children and beating babies, which I don't believe. And the FBI hostage team denied ever saying there was child abuse during the standoff, to her claim.
I heard too.
So April 19th, that was it. The assault took place. The Branch Davidians were heavily, because they were heavily armed. They had combat armored engineered vehicles, and the CEV used explosives to punch holes through the walls of the building. So the compound they could pump the tear gas into the compound to force the Branch Davidians out without harming them. And they did this. They increased the amount of gas for over 2 days. And then I'm trying to see. Loudspeakers were used to tell the Branch Davidians, you're not going to get shot, just come out. And, they just kept launching tear gas rounds. And there was so much gas, and for 6 hours, no Branch Davidians left the building. And then fires broke out. They started everything on fire. That people aren't sure if the fires were accidentally started or deliberately started by the pyrotechnic rounds used by the FBI. So 9 people left the building during the fires. The remaining Branch Davidians, including the children, were either buried alive by rubble, suffocated, or shot.
Yep.
Many were killed by smoke and carbon dioxide. And everyone died. Everyone died. Autopsies showed women and children found beneath the fallen concrete wall of storage. They all died of skull injuries. And they never found a meth lab.
Because there was none. They made it up so they can go in.
Yep. And 20 Branch Davidians were shot, including Koresh, as well as 5 of his children under the age of 14. There was another 3-year-old was stabbed in the chest.
That's crazy.
And these were all mercy killings carried out by the Branch Davidians. And it's said they were killed because the Branch Davidians were trapped in the fire with no escape.
Yep.
That's on. So I didn't know that. I thought it was suicide. I thought it was like Jim Jones where he had to drink the Kool-Aid.
No.
So yeah, the they investigated it, and the gunshot wounds support self-destruction, either by overt suicide or consensual execution, suicide by proxy, or forced execution. Because, you know, when they punched in the walls and the fire started, they were trapped. So that's unbelievable to me, and it's got the chronology and some of the transcripts of it. You know, people were waving white flags saying to just stop attacking, we're not doing anything. They finally had fire trucks come when the scene was secure, and the aftermath was just a mess. Was a mess. The new ATF director, John McGraw, criticized several aspects of the ATF raid. He came on in 95, the Government Accountability Office report on the use of force by the federal law enforcement agencies observed, on the basis of the Treasury's report of the Waco operation and the views of the tactical experts, own ATF personnel decided in October of 1995 the dynamic entry would only be planned after all other options had been considered and adjusted training accordingly. Because you have to remember, they went there with an arsenal, and there was no peaceful discussions. There was no attempt to peacefully serve the warrant. They just started there was just a shootout. So I mean, now because of this, they placed a greater emphasis on crisis negotiation and peaceful resolutions. They increased the training in the establishment for negotiation teams. The hostage rescue team underwent enhancements in terms of training, equipment, and coordination to improve their effectiveness in high-risk operations. It was just crazy. There was a ton of criminal prosecution and civil litigation. The 12 surviving Branch Davidians, were charged with murder of the federal officers. And 4 of the Branch Davidians were acquitted. Wow. And additionally, the jury acquitted all of the Branch Davidians on murder-related charges. They convicted them on 5 lesser charges, like aiding and abetting, voluntary manslaughter of federal agents. And then 8 Branch Davidians were convicted on firearms charges. I mean, this was just, I did not know what a mess this was. I know Koresh was a religious zealot. I know that he believed he was the second coming of Jesus.
Right.
But I usually will side with the government and law enforcement, but I really think that they screwed up here. They screwed up from the first minute. Like they never should have attacked. And even the arguments over who fired first, unless it's, a threat, and unless you know that, like, your car's getting shot, something next to you, like they could have peacefully tried to end this. And in the 51 days, to cut the water and the power, that's just disgusting.
Yeah.
They, why? How could you do that? And then the sleep deprivation. And I agree, like with the Syracuse guy who said, or not the Syracuse guy, one of the FBI guys said, you guys think this Koresh is crazy, so you're sleep depriving him, you cut his water, you're making a crazier man crazier. What do you think he's going to do?
Right.
what do you think is going to happen?
You want to de-escalate it, not escalate it.
Yeah. And then, crazy enough, there were civil suits by the Branch Davidians. They sued a lot of people. But unfortunately, I don't think. Yeah, they did lose the lawsuit because obviously it's Texas. They said they were fined to use the tear gas, and the use of force was necessary. The press coverage was criticized for its sensationalism and for providing a platform for Koresh and his followers. Journalists were accused of glamorizing Koresh and his beliefs. I didn't know. I didn't read anything. Do you remember?
I didn't remember that.
I don't remember that either, that he was glamorized. I remember people calling him crazy. I never thought that he was glorified.
No, I don't think so either. But
yeah, and like the controversies, several of the ATF people say that the first shots, one of the agents from the ATF team said that the first shots came from the ATF. Okay. His name is Roland Besteros, and he got crucified for saying that.
Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they were furious that he would turn against his own. Regardless of what happened, they would never expect him to say that. And then, the FBI said evidence from the front door will clearly show how many bullets and what happened. And then Koresh's attorney, Dick DeGuerin, went inside the Mount Carmel, the place after the siege, and testified at the trial that the protruding metal made it clear that the bullet holes were made by incoming rounds from the ATF.
Yeah.
So that's really disappointing. That's sad that we fired first.
It's crazy.
And that was that
crazy story. There's no.
And Janet Reno took a lot of flack for.
I think they should have planned better. It should have had a better system.
Well, I think it's also because of there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. When
you got the FBI, you got the ATF, you got the Texas Rangers, you got sheriffs. I mean, the National Guard. I mean, it's too many cooks in the kitchen. Too many people have. It's like coaches. When you're an offensive staff and you're putting together a game plan, one coach wants to run this, another coach wants to run that, and then the OC has to make the decision. But everyone wants to give their input and do what they want to do. And I think that was a huge part of this, because even like I said, there were two camps within the FBI that disagreed between breaching and negotiating. I thought it sounded like they made progress in negotiations. I think Koresh would have surrendered. I think he would have thrived because he was a narcissist on going to prison and giving prison interviews, writing more biblical stuff, and he did not want to die. And wow, according to Alan A. Stone's report, during the siege, the FBI used an incorrect psychiatrist perspective to evaluate the Branch Davidians' responses, which caused them to over-rely on Koresh's statements that they would not commit suicide. According to Stone, this incorrect evaluation caused the FBI to not ask pertinent questions to Koresh and to the others on the compound about whether they were planning a mass suicide. A more pertinent question would have been, what will you do if we tighten the noose around the compound and show overwhelming power using tear gas to force you to come out? He said that they screwed up there.
I agree. I agree. Could have handled better.
So yeah, there's just a ton of
should not have been as much loss of life in that situation, in my opinion.
Just a ton of information on it, but my God, what a story! What a mess!
What a mess!
What your feelings on David Koresh? I mean,
well, I kind of
he obviously he's a pedophile.
I guess he was a pedophile. I guess polyamorous. I mean, their group, like, everyone was consenting to this thing, but you can't live outside of the rules of the United States. So it's. I thought that.
I don't think he was Jim Jones.
I thought they should have taken him when they had the opportunities when he came and visited with them.
I agree.
And I think that he was obviously a loon, but wasn't really dangerous to the outside per se. And that's what was portrayed in this. This was portrayed not just that he was dangerous to those people, okay, but he was dangerous to the outside. I don't know if that makes sense, but that, like, almost like, oh, this is going to spread in some weird capacity. Like, it was not going to spread. Like, so
it sounds like they were really pressing the child molestation and the underage kids.
Right. They don't
being
want
physically
that going
abused.
On in the United States, but 100%. But and that.
But it showed that it didn't happen.
Took him down easily and just brought him in. You know?
Yes, I agree.
I thought he had a relationship too with the town. I can't remember.
They got along. It said they were very cordial and got along well in town.
I thought it was mishandled.
100%. 100% mishandled. 100% mishandled.
Yes, something had to be done. Something had to be done about him. There was not the rush to do it, even though you're on 52 days. There didn't need to be a standoff. They could have taken him by themselves. They could have penetrated more within the system there. They could have. I know. Look, I know Koresh was pushing them against the government and all that stuff, but there could have been ways. Obviously, it was brainwashing and all those kind of things, but I just think that, and that is not. I'm not saying this to say that I support Koresh, because I didn't. I don't support fanaticism, but no. But he wasn't a harm to the outside.
No, they said he rarely left.
They could have handled it and figured out a way, to bring him in. It's like, did you watch that show on on Brigham Young that was on Netflix or whatever?
No.
It was basically how the Mormons didn't like the show very much because, of course, Netflix attacks the Mormons, but basically, it painted the Mormons as taking it by force, Utah, and kind of like putting everybody. Ooh, is that a yawn for you? Yeah, you're tired. Yeah.
No, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, but anyway, yeah, I think that's the deal there, and again, something had to be done, but it could have been done differently.
I agree.
And it was a shame it went down the way it is. Go to the bathroom. Great pod. This show has obviously become wildly popular, amazingly. So but I'll see you later tonight.
Yeah, because we can do it all. So when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges, throw them right back at life.